Ethereum's censorship problem is getting worse. 4 of the 5 biggest block builders on Ethereum are excluding transactions sanctioned by the US government, data shows. For many believers in blockchain, the technology's allure lies in its open, uncontrolled nature, where decentralized networks are unfettered by the constraints and biases that shape today's internet. But some researchers and users of Ethereum, the world's second largest blockchain, are increasingly troubled by data showing a marked increase in censorship, what appears to be a concerted effort by block builders to exclude transactions linked to entities sanctioned by the US government. This article is featured in the latest issue of The Protocol, our weekly newsletter exploring the tech behind crypto, one block at a time. Sign up here to get it in your inbox every Wednesday. Also, please check out our weekly The Protocol podcast. A turning point came last year when the U.S. government sanctioned Tornado Cash, a privacy-mixing program on Ethereum that helped people transact without leaving a trace. The Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control (OFAC) said the program was used by terrorists and other U.S. sanctioned entities, so it added Tornado's Ethereum-based computer code to the same blacklist as Iran, North Korea, and Hamas. In response, some blockchain advocates were defiant. They balked at OFAC's attempt at censorship and gloated that Ethereum would be immune to it as a result of its decentralized construction. It hasn't really worked out that way. About 72% of data blocks posted to MEV Boost, middleware that powers almost all of the validators that write blocks to Ethereum, are now considered censored, up from about 25% in November 2022, based on research from Tony Wostetter, a researcher at the Ethereum Foundation. The metric measures blocks assembled by MEV Boost block builders which, based on statistical analysis, appear to deliberately exclude sanctioned crypto addresses. As for why this is viewed as troubling, block builders have the authority to decide which transactions and in which order they put into their blocks and which they want to censor, Wostetter explained in a message to CoinDesk. This means block builders decide upon the content of the blockchain. Of the 5 largest block builders, only one of them, Titan Builder, claims explicitly that it does not filter transactions, a practice corroborated by Wostetter's research. If Titan would start censoring tomorrow, then Ethereum would be at over 90% censorship, Martin Kerpelman, the founder of Ethereum scaling network Gnosis Chain, said in an interview. So essentially, we're just one builder away from quite heavy censorship on Ethereum. Sanction breaking. Transactions can still sneak their way onto Ethereum, but getting them there typically costs extra and takes longer. Wostetter refers to this sort of transaction throttling as censorship, an affront to what crypto is all about. Infrastructure operators might just call it compliance, a necessary step on Ethereum's journey toward mainstream adoption. It's a marked departure from Ethereum's original pitch as a network where code is law, where software replaces middlemen, and where decentralized networks can operate outside constraints from centralized companies and governments. Wostetter's research gives a glimpse into a growing shift in Ethereum's under-the-hood transaction apparatus. The network's infrastructure has quietly become dominated by a few big players, trading bots and block builders that touch virtually all of the transactions issued onto Ethereum before they officially hit the chain's ledger. How Ethereum works. Ethereum is a pretty simple network at its core. When a user submits a transaction, it isn't immediately added to the blockchain. Instead, it goes into a mempool, a waiting area for other yet-to-be-processed transactions. Validators then swoop in and organize those transactions into big groups called blocks, which they officially add to the blockchain in exchange for fees and newly minted ETH. This pipeline has become more convoluted in recent years as people have developed strategies to earn maximum extractable value, or MEV, which is the extra profit that one can squeeze from Ethereum by previewing upcoming transactions in the mempool. Smart coders have figured out ways to front-run trades from other users, such as buying or selling tokens just before others to make an easy profit. They've also found ways to exploit spur-of-the-moment arbitrage opportunities, moving tokens between separate exchanges just before market prices will shift due to some other order in the queue. Today, 90% of validators aren't assembling blocks themselves. Instead, they use MEV Boost to outsource this work to third-party builders, bots that put together MEV-optimized blocks and hand them to validators. From relayers to block builders, Flashbots introduced MEV Boost as a way to spread out the riches of MEV, but its decentralized marketplace of builders, searchers, and relayers has quietly transformed how activity travels through Ethereum, cementing little understood infrastructure at key choke points in the chain's transaction pipeline. Soon after the U.S. government sanctioned Tornado Cash, MEV Boost's relayers were blamed for censoring Ethereum. Relayers are third-party software operators that hand transactions from builders to validators, and in November 2022, Wostetter found that 77% of them stopped passing. along blocks with sanctioned transactions. This large percentage resulted in part from the fact that a small number of relayers were available in MEV Boost's early days, and the most popular ones were filtering out transactions. After a blowback from the Ethereum community, several non-censoring relayers entered the MEV Boost fray, and it looked like the tide was turning back in favor of network neutrality. Today, only 30% of relayed blocks are censored by Wostetter's definition. But things seem to have swung in favor of sanctions in recent months, largely due to a shift in behavior among MEV Boost builders rather than its relayers. Just 5 builders contribute more than 90% of the blocks that go onto Ethereum. 4 of those 5 are censoring transactions, according to Wostetter's research. It's not surprising to see that certain infrastructure providers, particularly those based in the US, have taken steps to operate cautiously when it comes to sanctions. The headline-grabbing guilty pleas last month from the crypto exchange Binance and its CEO, Changpeng Zhao, showed the consequences of running afoul of OFAC rules. The U.S. Department of Justice also charged 2 Tornado Cash developers with money laundering and arrested one of them back in August. Block builders are also just people like you and me that have families that might want to move to the U.S., etc., wrote Wosstetter. It's understandable that they try to minimize the risk for themselves as individuals and their business. The path forward, beyond the neutrality, concerns. Wostetter's research highlights how Ethereum's MEV economy has centralized key elements of the chain's inner workings, a potential security risk as well as a problem for the chain's neutrality. In addition to 5 builders assembling 90% of Ethereum blocks, just 4 relayers are behind 96% of the blocks that are sent to validators. Centralization and censorship are top of mind for Ethereum's builders. Wosstetter, who has been one of the loudest voices on this issue, works at the Ethereum Foundation, the main nonprofit that stewards the network's development. Vitalik Buterin, Ethereum's co-founder and chief figurehead, has added censorship-curbing software updates to the most recent version of his proposed roadmap for the blockchain. But even some of those solutions raise problems. For instance, some users who wish for their transactions to remain uncensored have opted to use private mempools, issuing transactions directly to builders rather than Ethereum's mempool to guarantee their inclusion. While this can help circumvent the censorship problem, it's not hard to see how the normalization of private order flow might introduce different problems to the network, like higher fees, less transparency, and the same sorts of middlemen that blockchains were built to avoid.